Hello and welcome to lesson 2 of week 10. In this lesson, we are going to look at the layout elements in HTML5 and how we can use CSS to style these layout elements. My name is Mildred. In the last lesson, we created styles on the style sheet for the grid view. Now we are going to leave these styles here. In HTML5, we have layout containers that we can use. The first we are going to look at is the header element, and what we use this to do is to define a heading for a page or for a section or a content. Header is used for heading like the name implies. We have something else called the nav, which is a container for navigation links. We have another element called the section, which we can use to create a section for a page or a document. Within a section, we can have several other elements, like we can have article, which we can use to create like a self-contained content on the page. Each of these elements have a close tag. They are not void elements. We also have another element that we can use to have footer information at the bottom of the document. We call this the footer element. We have another element called the aside element that we can use to create a sidebar, and we have an element called the details element that we can use to provide content on the page that the users can select on demand. And when we have details, we want to put like an arrow that says read more. We use summary to put a heading for the details. So we are going to illustrate or create a web page using these elements, and then we are going to see how we can style these elements to create a layout for a web page. So the first kind of layout we are going to create is a layout that will use CSS floats to position content on the page, and then we are going to try to use the grid view and see how we can position content. We want to create a sample web page, and let's say that I want to create a web page for, let's say, a psychology clinic, for instance. I want to have a header on this page, and what I want to put in the header is just like a heading. We can put a logo, a banner, whatever we want to put there. And so I'm going to give it the name. Let's save this, refresh our page to see how it looks. So we have psychology insights there. Now, until we style this page, we are not going to see the effect of all of these elements that we have used, but we'll go ahead and create the page content, and then we begin to use CSS to style the page. So we are going to use the style sheet called styles.css to apply styles to all of these elements on the page. So we want to have a section on the page. I'll close section. In this section, I want to have the navigation bar, so I'll use my nav. It's going to be easier for me to use lists to create my navigation links. So I'm going to use another list, and I'm going to use list item, and then I'm going to create, let's say this is an about page, and this href, for now, let's say it links nowhere, it remains on the same page. I'm going to copy this to make it fast. I'm going to have at least 3 links on the page. So I have the about. Let's say I want to have another here, create account, and I want to have something like login. When I refresh my page, we just have it listed. We don't have any style yet. We want to also have, let's say, a self-contained content here. Let's use article. So there's no fixed rule on when to use this. You just have to know what the purpose is, and once you know the purpose of these elements, you are going to still use CSS to style them, to position them in different parts of the web page. So I'm going to use article, and let's leave a heading for this article. We'll say this is the main content area. I'll close H1, I want to put more text here so that we can see the page displayed properly. Now, within the section after the article, I want to add, let's say, a sidebar. So I'm going to use aside. Let's save this, refresh. We have everything on the page, not positioned in different places. Let's try to use the details element to create a read more section. So I'll put details here and I'll close details, and I'm going to put summary for the heading, and I want the summary to have read more, and close summary. So more of what are they reading? I'm going to make sure that this details is within this section. Let me close the section after details. I want to say we will explore your thoughts process. Want to know how? Then read more. I'm going to put more details here. Let's say this is how we will explore the thoughts process. I'll copy this and I'll paste it several times. Save this, refresh our page, and we have all of our content. So when you expand read more, you will get the content to read. And so that is how we use the details and the summary. So now that we have created content on this page, we want to see how we can style this content or the elements to position them on different parts of the page. The first thing we want to do is we want to put this heading. Maybe we'll give it a background color, change the text decoration of the links, remove the bullets, maybe put a background color. We put styles for the link, the visited, the hover. Then the main content area, maybe we want to position it somewhere in the center and position the sidebar, this aside, somewhere at the right part of the page. So when you figure out the style that you want to create, you go to your style sheet and you begin to style this. So we're going to leave the previous style we have here, and we're going to start writing style for the header. So I'm going to enter so you can see what I'm doing. So the first thing we want to do is let's create a style for the body element, and what I want to put here is the font family, which is going to be the fonts that will be applied to any text that is in the body area without any font specified. So I want it to be cursive. When I save this and I refresh, yeah, everything on the page is in cursive font. Now I want to apply a style to the header. Let's say we want this header element to have a background color. I'm going to use any color, 555. We also want it to have a font family. Let's make this font family sans serif. We want to have it padded. So let's put a padding of 30 pixels. We want to, let's say we want to align into the center. We also want to have the text color to be white, or we use, and then we want the height. Let's say we want the height to be 100 pixels. When I save this, refresh my page, we now have the header element with the background color. Now let's move to the navigation style. We want to create a style for the navigation container. I want this to float to the left. So we are using float for the layout. I want the width for the navigation bar to be 30%. So I want to divide the page width into 3. I'm going to put the navigation to be 30%. Then maybe I will put another, maybe the section to be 40% and the sidebar to be 30% to make the width of 100%. So I'm going to make the width here to be 30%. Then I'm going to change the background color of this. I'll put a padding of 20 pixels. Save this, refresh. We have a side navigation. We want to now apply styles to the navigation links. On the HTML page, we have the UL tag within the nav, and we have the anchor tags within the li tags. So we are going to try to put our style so that we are going to use all that we have learned with the different types of selectors that we have. So I'm going to style all of the another list within a nav container, and what I want to do is to put the list style type to be none, and I also want to make the padding to be 0. I want to go further to put all of the anchor tag within the li tag. I want them to have a text decoration of none. I want to change, let's say, the font family to monospace. I want to have the font size, let's make it bigger, to 48 pixels. And I also want to make the font style, let's make it italic. Save this, refresh my page, and I have this on the page. So let's reduce this to be, let's say, 32 pixels. Refresh, and we'll have it like this. We want to create a style to position the other content. Now the next thing we're going to do is to change the colors first. So let's say LIA link. So when the link is not yet visited, we want the color to be black. When it is visited, we want the color to be green. When we hover, we want it to have a background color of black, and we want it to have a text color of white. Let's see if this works before we do more. Okay, so this works. Let's create a style for the active. We're not going to use it now, but we'll just leave it there for now. For active, we want the background color to be red, and we want the text color to be white. So when we click on this link, it becomes green when visited. Now that we have done this, we want to look at the other elements. We have the article, we have the aside, we have the details, and we have the summary. So let's create a style for the article. So there is no fixed way to do this. You have to think and figure out how you want your style to be, but you always have to remember to float the position you want it to be. We want this to be floated to the left. We want it to have a padding of, let's say, 20 pixels. We want it to have a width now. We want this to be 40% so that we will put the sidebar 30%. And then we want to have a background color. And we want the background color to be, let me use this color. Let's see if this works. So we have the main content area with its background color here. We want to style this to position it properly. So we've done that for the article. Let's do that for the aside. For the aside, we also want to float it left. We want the width to be 30%. We want the padding to be 20 pixels. We want the color to be white. We want the background color to be grayish, and we want the text to be aligned to the center. We also want the font size to be 14 pixels, and same. So we have the sidebar with information, we change the background color, and we put the content. So this is not the best page design, but this gives you an idea on how to start creating your web page. Now let's create a style for the footer. For the footer, I want it to have a background color of, I also want it to have a padding of 10 pixels. I want it to be aligned to the center. I want the text to be aligned to the center. And I also want the color to be white. Now let's put footer information on this page. So after the section, I will put footer and close footer. And what we want is maybe a copyright symbol. In HTML, you use the ampersand sign and copy to get you copyright symbol. So I'll put copyright Mildred 2022. Save this, refresh my page, and I have my footer information here. I want to position this to be within this container. Now I'm going to create a style for the details and the summary. What I can do is to put it within the aside so that the style for the aside can apply to it. But we can put a different style if we want, so this remains with the aside. So we can have several sections on the, I'll create a style for the section. So I'm going to go up and I'll create a style for the section. What I'm going to do for the section is I will use the after pseudo elements. And so after each section, what I want to do after each section is to make sure it is a table and I clear both sides. So I'll do content, display, table, and clear both. So I'll save this, refresh my page, and I have my display better. So this is not the best design, but we can see that we have created a web page, floating elements, and clearing. So this is a way to use the float layout. But I will tell you that one of the disadvantages of using this is it's not responsive. When you use a screen size smaller, you can begin to have things not positioned properly. So we see this, we have the content not resizing as much as we want, and we're going to use media query to solve this. Because we use the screen percentage, we have it a little bit responsive, but not as responsive as we will want this to be. We want to be able to have smaller screen size, like when I resize this page, and even with the smaller screen size, we want to be able to view this content properly. Most likely we want to stack them on themselves so that we don't have them squeezing too small that we have to have vertical scroll bars and the likes. So let's look at how we can use the grid view layout where we use rows and columns for the page. I'm going to create content on the page. I'll create the header and I'll close header. I'm going to have a heading here within the header, and the heading is going to be, then I'm going to have a section and I'm going to close section. I'm going to make each section a row. Now recall that in the last lesson we said that we will use the row class and then we are going to put columns using these columns within the row, and this is how we do that. I'm going to put the class equal to row because the name of the class on my style sheet is row. So each section is going to be a row, and within the section all other elements are going to be columns within the row. So I'm going to put the navigation here, and I want the navigation to occupy 3 columns. So I'll use class equal to col 3, and I'll close nav. Now within each row we must have a total of 12 columns, which means that I must have more content that will be equal to 12. So we use 3, we have 9 more. I'm going to put my article here, and I'm going to put the class is equal to col let's say 6. So I've used 9. Now I have 3 more left to make sure I have 12 columns within the row. I'm going to put the last 3 for the aside. So now I've created my containers as rows, as columns within rows. So 3 plus 6 plus 3 gives us 12. So now we have 12 within this row, and if you have less than 12, your display is going to be disrupted. So you want 12 columns within each row. I made the section a row, and I made the elements within the section occupy columns on the page. So now let's put in our content within each of these parts. Within the nav, I want to have an unordered list, and I'll close unordered list, and then I'm going to have my list item, about. For my article, I'm going to have main page content, close page 4, and then I'll have P. So I'm putting any contents just to put placeholders on the different sections of the page. For my aside, I want to have the same information I had here, so I rather just copy this rather than continue, and I'm going to put that there. So I'll save this, refresh my page. I have these in columns within the page, so we can see that this is already laid out. We just need to style the different sections with different colors to make it okay. But we can see that already if we resize this, it's going to resize to fit properly, and it's a better display. So let's go to the main.css file where we are going to create style for this page. So the first style I'm going to use here is to style the header like we did the last time. So I either style the body. You know, you can actually style the HTML element, which is going to put a style for all of the page. And let's say we want the font family to be, we want to have a style for the header. We want the header to have a background color. Let's change the style a little bit from the last one. So #33b5e5. We want to have a color of the text to be white. We want to have it padded. Let's say we want a padding of 20 px, and then we want the text to be aligned to the center. Let's see what this looks like, and we have this. Let's style the navigation links. So we want the another list tag within the navbar to have a list style type of none. We also want it to, we don't want it to have any margin, so put margin to be 0, and we also do not want it to have any padding, so put padding to be 0. Save this, refresh. We have that applied. We want to style the list item tags, so I'm going to put nav li, and what I want to do here is to have a padding of each of the list item to be, let's say, 5 pixels. We want to have the margin at the bottom so that there will be space between each of the list, so put a margin there of, let's say, 10 pixels. Then we want to have a background color. Let's make this gray, and then we want to have a color. Let's make this white. So let's see what this looks like. So we have this here, and we'll say text decoration none. Save, refresh. We have that. we want to put a style for the hover. Let's say li hover, and we want, when it hovers, we want the background color to change, and we'll change the background color to, and then we are going to style the aside, and for the aside we want a background color of gray. We want the padding to be 10 pixels. We want the color to be white. We want the text to be aligned to the center, and then we want the font size to be 14 pixels. So play around with these styles and see what displays your page better. So this is just a style I have not thought through properly, but when you are building your web page, you can play around with designs and see how to create good designs or beautiful designs for your page as we go along. So this is how we use the grid view layout for the page, and you can see this is more responsive even without using media queries. If we compare this with the layout of the float, we can see the float is a little bit not as responsive as the other, but it still serves the purpose. So you can use any type, but it's more convenient to use the grid view, dividing the page into rows and columns, because when your site gets complex, it's easier to maintain that. We also have a layout using flexbox and using grid, and we're going to look at that later down in this part, but these are the way we use floats and the way we use grid view. In the next lesson, we are going to look at how to apply media query to this to make this responsive for mobile device, and rather than shrink this page, we might want to stack this content on themselves. So thank you, and see you in the next lesson.